Hey guys, how's it going? This is going to be the last KCD2 drama video, and this is going to be my final stance on this whole situation about KCD2. Because no matter what I say about the game, no matter how much I scream from the rooftops about, how this isn't a big fucking deal, people are treating this as if this is another Dragon Age the Veilguard situation, when it's not. To give a quick rundown of what's going on with KCD2, if you haven't watched the previous video, it is in hot water for having a optional gay romance for Henry. It's already been confirmed by Grums, who's talked to players beat the game. The players already confirmed the game's not woke. There's no no agenda pushing in the game. They already explained the person of color in the game as being a traveling medic for Sigmund's army. So that's already been debunked. It makes sense why he's there. And of course, the optional gay romance. And the players confirm that you have to go out of your way to find it. It's really difficult to even do. The cutscene involving with it is not even explicit, and it is optional, which was my main point of my last video. People are claiming that Warhorse is retconning Henry to be gay/bi, when that is not the case. And I already talked about this in my last video, but I'll talk about it again. But this video is going to be a little bit more in-depth of what I'm trying to say, and maybe this video will get the point across a little bit better, and hopefully we'll get across some thick skulls who are claiming that this game has been infected and Warhorse is infected and this game is going to be the next Dragon Age the Veilguard kind of shit. Hopefully this video can at least put some sense into them. So in my comments, I received mixed reactions. There are some people who were saying this is not a big deal, people are overblowing this, which is true. This whole situation is not even a big deal. But then you got people who are saying I'm wrong. I'm factually wrong for defending KCD2, that's saying Henry having a gay romance option is apparently a bad thing. And that I'm wrong about that, and this is agenda pushing, this is woke, this is DEI field, whatever the fuck, whatever they call it, right? The two main points they've been using against me, and this is the first part of this video, by the way, it's going to be me debunking some points, and I want to bring in two games, one for each point, right? For one, one of the main ones I saw was that you couldn't do it in the first game, so why is it in the sequel? Well, to answer that, I can use another very popular RPG franchise to debunk this, because these two games are really huge games and are loved by the community. And they didn't receive this amount of backlash. But this game apparently deserves it. But these games, when they came out, didn't. The game I'm referencing that did the same thing was the very popular sci-fi RPG Mass Effect. If you didn't know, the very first Mass Effect, you could not romance the same sex. You could only romance the opposite sex. It wasn't until Mass Effect 2, the sequel, where you could romance the same sex. Now, is that woke? Because when that game came out, no one was screaming woke. People were just praising the game for being a good video game. No one cared that there was a same-sex romance option. In fact, no one even talked about it. It was just talked about as being a very good RPG and a very good video game. Which is what the gaming discussion should be. It's not talking about your personal fucking politics and getting butthurt about it. It should be about if the video game is good or not. I have made it clear several times on this channel. Well, I haven't made it clear, rephrase. I've talked about it in the last video, that I am for inclusivity and diversity and representation, but when it's forced, like in Dragon Age the Veilguard, when they force modern politics into a fantasy like RPG, is where I have an issue. But things like that, like an option to have a same-sex romance in an RPG doesn't fucking bother me. But that's just one point. But see, every time I brought it up in the comments, they didn't want to comment on it. They didn't want to say anything about that because they know it's true. That game received massive critical acclaim, that it's some people's favorite Mass Effect game, and it introduced same-sex romance. That's just one of the points. Here's the second to last point, right? People saying that Henry was already an established character. They turned him gay and /bi. He's already established character. He's established to be straight. Let me rephrase this as someone who's played Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, who's played a ton of it, who backed the game on Kickstarter when the Kickstarter dropped, who's been playing the game since launch and loves this game and it's in my top 5 RPGs of all time. Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 is a true to form RPG. Your character Henry, while has a slight backstory, the main thing you know at the start of the game is you're playing as Henry, you're the son of the blacksmith, and you're in a small village. That is it. He does have a girlfriend, but that is pretty much all you know. All right, they don't go deep into his backstory until you find out who his real father is and stuff. They don't go like that's later on in the game, but the whole point of that is, yeah, you're playing as an established character. However, you can forge his personality and forge how people view him based by your decisions and your actions along the way. I'm pretty sure if people played as a serial killer in KCD 1, he's not going to be a fucking serial killer in KCD 2. I'm just saying, it's an RPG. It is a RPG. But there was another RPG that did the same thing. But again, no one talked about it. In fact, this studio is known for having these kind of options in their RPG, but this one was in a very similar situation as KCD2, but no one talked about it. I am, of course, talking about Fallout 4. Now, you play as a somewhat established character. You have somewhat of an established backstory, kind of like Henry, where you play as the son of a blacksmith and you live in a small village. In Fallout 4, depending on what gender you chose, you played as either a warrior or a war veteran. You play, and these two people are married. And keep in mind, both of them are male and female when you start the game. Is a male and female option. You also have a kid in the game. So technically, this game should be woke, right? Because after you leave the vault and you start getting companions, you can romance the same-sex companions in Fallout 4. But he was married to a woman and had a kid. Wouldn't that be woke to you guys? But no one said a thing about Fallout 4 because they were talking about the game, not fucking politics. There is a difference. Those are the 2 points that were constantly being brought up, but you know what's crazy about these 3 games? They are all RPGs. RPGs focus on player choice. They offer the player a lot of options and choices to mold the character how you want it to be molded into. People keep bringing up The Witcher 3, and I get it. However, the difference between Henry and Geralt is that Geralt was already based off a ton of books that had already pre-established lore about the character that CD Projekt Red had to get approval from the author to make somewhat changes. Do you think the author was going to let Geralt have a same-sex romance option when in the books he was always with women? No, they're not going to do that. With Henry, his backstory isn't in books. Okay, it is Warhorse's creation. They're not changing it for the sake of changing it. They're not changing it for the sake of woke or DEI. They're just giving players more options for their Henry, for more options for you to mold and shape Henry however you want him to be. That should be a good thing. That is more options for us as the player to experiment with and have fun with and get different sides of Henry. They're not objectively making Henry gay/bi, and this is the second point, me stating the facts, and this is facts, what I'm saying. They are not making Henry gay, straight, or bi, whatever the fuck. What happens to Henry in KCD2 is entirely up to the player and the choices that you make. Do you want to make Henry gay? Go have sex with the same sex. Do you want to make Henry bi? Bang both. Do you want to make Henry straight? Bang all the women that you see as you're exploring. That is your choice. It is a choice. It is optional. For them to factually make Henry gay/bi, like factually make it like canonically and retconning him, they would have had to immediately remove the fact that he had a girlfriend and just be like, hey, by the way, he only bangs dudes now. You can't romance any women in the game. He can only bang dudes. That would be making Henry gay. They're not doing that. They're literally just giving a player the choice to make their Henry however they want to make him, which is fine. That's not a bad thing. And that should never be a bad thing. In an RPG, this is a role-playing game where the player's choices are the most important thing. Choice and consequence. These people that are spewing, oh, the studio's been affected, the studio's woke, this game's woke, have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. They are a part of a hive mind community that want to focus on politics and gaming instead of the video game itself. At any point when you argue with these people, they don't bring up the gameplay or the game because they know it looks good. Instead, they'll bring up politics. When in fact, that never used to be the case. Look at Mass Effect 2, look at Fallout 4, as I said, they did the same thing that KCD2 is doing, and no one batted an eye and no one said a word because people focus on how good the video game is. People saying that this is another Dragon Age the Veilguard situation has no idea what the fuck they are talking about. Dragon Age the Veilguard failed because it forced modern politics into a fantasy RPG where they made one of the characters non-binary and had gender politics in it. Not once in any of the previews or anything like that had they mentioned them making any character trans or non-binary or pushing a woman boss agenda. It is a grounded in reality medieval Bohemia RPG. And yes, they do have an option to have a same-sex relationship, but it's already been confirmed that this will have consequences. They've already confirmed that Henry and this other person will try to keep it a secret, as is taboo during this time. It was a forbidden sin and these people knew it. If you do any amount of research, you will know there was gay people in medieval Bohemia. So this is still historically accurate. And people are now hanging on the fact that the game director said this is not a Christian game. Are we really using this argument now? KCD1 was not a Christian game. For it to be a Christian game, it wouldn't be as violent or as vulgar as it was. The only reason why people think that is because the game is set in medieval Bohemia, where it was very much a Christian territory. There are themes of Christianity all throughout the game, sure, but it's not a Christian video game. Do you think it's very Christian for Henry to go out drinking and have an all-night bender with a priest? Do you think it's very much Christian for Henry to bang Teresa before marriage? No. It is not a Christian video game. And for people to now use that as ammunition just shows these people have nothing else better to do other than to sit there and find something to scream woke about, to scream censorship about. It is ridiculous how the gaming community has turned into this toxic cesspit of politics and finding, and this doesn't just go for the anti-woke, this also goes for the woke. This goes for the woke crowd. As I've said, I'm perfectly balanced on this. I do support representation and diversity in video games, sure, but I also support it only when it fits the game. Something like Dragon Age the Veilguard is pushing that to its limits, and it failed for that reason. And it's a lesson to show that you shouldn't overdo something like that. It should fit the game, it should fit the narrative, and you shouldn't be pushing it that hard down our throats. KCD2 is not a woke video game. It is not DEI filled. Just because the owner of Warhorse is DEI, whatever the fuck they want to call it, does not mean they're forcing Warhorse to put anything DEI into the game. Their game directors already came out and said that he was not forced into doing anything. This was the game that he wanted to make. Which means he's the one who wanted to include this extra player option for you to do. To the people screaming that they forced Henry to be gay/bi is simply stupid. They have no idea what they're talking about. For that to happen, as I said, they would have to literally sit there and tell you that for Henry to be straight up gay, they would have to tell you, like, you can't bang females anymore. Henry now loves dick. He just loves dick. We don't know what the quest involves with the same-sex relations. We don't know how Henry's reacting to it. We're just going off assumptions, which is a very dangerous game to play. To the people boycotting KCD2, go ahead, scream as loud as you want. You're boycotting a game that's potentially going to be an excellent video game because of your blindness to your own politics. And it's a fucking sad state when we can't even look at video games as video games anymore. KCD2 is shaping up to be one of the best RPGs. From everyone who's played it, they've said how great the game is. Grums did an amazing article, if you look it up, where even the player who played it said this game's not woke. They're not pushing any agenda. However, that's not good enough for these people. They don't want any gay stuff, and they don't want a gay person in their game. They don't want a person of color in their game. They don't want a woman in their game. Let me rephrase, they don't want an ugly woman in their game. They want a hot woman to look at while they beat their fucking meat. It is ridiculous to sit here and say KCD2 is woke, because it's not. It is just a RPG. At the end of the day, it's just an RPG. This is the last video I'm making on this subject matter. I have no intention to talk about this drama anymore. I am going back to talking about to Path of Exile 2, and I'm going to be reviewing KCD2 when I officially beat it. I'm going to put out first impressions after I put in at least 15 to 20 hours to the game. Anyways, guys, hope you guys have a great day. Sorry about this long-winded rant video, but this video needed to be made. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll talk to you guys next time.